Good morning, everyone. We'll get started with today's class. So yesterday there was a meeting that I had to attend urgently and couldn't hold the class. So instead, what I will do is on Friday, like how I have been doing the last couple of weeks, I'll have the class from 1:45 to 2:30, following which we will have the lab. Okay. So that is to compensate for Tuesday's class. All right. And another thing, I'm happy to see that the scores of quiz 2 are quite much better than scores in quiz 1. So I don't know whether I set an easy paper or whether you guys really prepared very hard. So what is the reason? I mean, I'm happy about it. Uh, so just would like to know the difference between quiz 1 and quiz 2.
Sir, actually, I had a doubt in one question. Can you
Okay.
discuss? Sir? It
Yeah,
will
yeah,
just take
sure.
a few minutes.
Yeah, sure, sure. Let me know. Which question?
Sir, that 75 ohm input resistance question, I have a
Hmm.
point to make. Uh,
Yeah.
yes, sir. Actually, in small signal transistors, sir, I think I searched on the internet and I saw like tens to hundreds of milliampere current is allowed as IC. So, sir, in
It is
that,
allowed. Like, for example, the transistor that you have can sustain up to 100 milliamp of current. Okay.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. For 75 ohms as input resistance for common base mode, sir, like the collector current is coming out to be around 0.3 milliamperes, which is very less, which I think. Sir, so I guess if we can go up to like 30 milliampere or 35 milliamperes of IC, then common emitter would be a better configuration, sir.
Now, suppose I tell you, I'm selling two products to you. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Both of them are, let's say, doing the same job of matching to 75 ohm. One thing consumes 30 milliamp from, let's say 10 volt supply to keep things easy for calculation. So 10 volt supply, 30 milliamp, how much power are you dissipating? 300 milliwatt,
Yes, sir.
right? And let's say another version where you're saying that, with zero point 0.3 milliamp, I am giving you the same performance, right? So 0.3 milliamp into 10 is 3 milliwatt. So
Uh,
obviously, what is preferred is a low power version, right?
sir, but
Now, yes, you are right. Like if you take beta to be 100, let's say if beta is 200, then it becomes around what? Some 70 milliamp or something like that. It depends on the beta, basically. You're depending on this R pi to give you the input impedance. That's your point, right?
yes, sir.
Yeah. So the reason I asked that question is basically to help you understand that there are certain topologies which are better suited for certain applications, right?
Yes, sir.
So basically that is the point that I wanted to bring about, and we had also discussed. So typically if you pump, let's say, the same zero point 0.3 milliamp of current or even 1 milliamp of current, it will be in the order of some kilo ohms. The input impedance will be in the order of some kilo ohms, right? So, so that is the kind of thing. So you are technically right when you say that I can crank up the current and get the impedance that I want. Yes, it is possible, but another aspect is also that this RPi is heavily sensitive on beta. Okay,
Yes,
so
sir.
that's another point. So, for example, if you look at the data sheet, they will say that the beta ranges anywhere between 100 and 500 or something like that,
Yes, sir.
right? So then what happens is, if you are going to design a product like that, your input impedance is going to vary all over the place. Whereas when you look at the common base, it is dependent on only VT. So it's going to be IC by VT, and that is much more stable across different what shall I say, different transistor variance as opposed to depending on beta, because beta is a factor which varies very badly. So yeah, technically speaking, yes, you can say I can crank up the current and get it working. True, agree. Okay, but these are the other factors. Okay.
Yes, sir. But even if you use common base in this case, sir, but like I understand that we need a lower input impedance so that we are using a common base. But sir, like if we are sticking to the value that is given in the question of Rin, then sir, 0.3 milliampere is a very low current of IC.
That's good only, no?
Okay, so
I mean, that's fine. 300 microampere of current is good. I mean, having lower current, it's fine. It's not that you're kind of going to be somewhere in the region where you are limited by noise and things like that, right?
yes, sir.
So it's still, I mean, it's not a very large amount of current. It's in the good range of low current kind of design.
Yes, sir. So,
Okay.
common emitter won't be considered, right?
Won't be considered as a right answer. Yes, I mean,
Yes.
if you want, just because you have this kind of thought process. I mean, beyond marks, I want you to think about it. Okay, beyond whether you get a 2 or a 1 or a 0 in that for that question, I want you to think about it at a more higher level. Okay, so if you are going to make a choice, let's say tomorrow you're going to design something which is going to become a product, then you have to have these things in mind. Okay?
Yes, sir.
So that's how engineering works. Okay. All right.
Yes, sir.
All right. But anyway, I appreciate that you took the effort to think through it and in this way. So regarding marks, let me just think about it. And I'm not committing anything now, but let me just think about it. But other than that, but as an engineer, I want you to have this in mind. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, could you please explain how the question is to be done in which we have to calculate the error from the offset voltage?
Okay. Just let me. So I don't exactly recall what I gave you. I think I gave something like there is an offset voltage like this, right? In the plus terminal. And I had given some inverting amplifier, right? Something like this, some RF, there was some R1. And I gave some voltage here.
Yes, 1 volt.
Yes.
1 volt, right? Okay. So see, always when you have a negative feedback system, you can, and given that the op amp is ideal in every other way, you just blindly go and use the virtual short concept. Okay, so that is how you solve op amp based questions. All right. So if this is how much did I give? 10 millivolt, is it?
Yes, sir.
Something like that. Yeah. So this also becomes plus 10 millivolt. Okay. Now what is the current that is going to flow, or rather in this direction? So it is going to be 1 minus 0.01 divided by R1. This is going to be the current that is flowing. Right? And what is V out? V out is going to be this 0.01 plus, the current, or rather minus this current multiplied by RF. And you'll basically get the output voltage. You understood?
Yes, sir.
So if you didn't have it, you'll have 1 divided by 1, and that goes into RF. Here you have the 10 millivolt, which is coming over here. Okay. And I think somebody had WhatsApp me. Sorry, yesterday was a very tight day. Even today for me, it's a very packed day. I couldn't respond. Somebody wanted help with the input and output impedances. Am I right? Did someone ask that question? Yes, no. If you want me to explain, I'll explain, or else I'll move over to whatever I wanted to teach today.
No, sir, can you sir please explain the input and output? That's one. The input
Right,
and
right,
output.
right, right. Correct. So I had given something like this, right? Some RE value, and you have, I think I had just put some minus VE here. This is RL, right? So, and also we had R1 and R2. Let's say this is plus, what did I give? Plus 5 minus 5, is it? Okay, or I think I didn't even give that value, okay. And you have your RS, this is your Vn, right? And I had asked for, let's say this was R1, this was R2, Rn. So the input impedance is what? It is first of all R1 parallel to R2 parallel to R pi in series with beta plus 1 times the emitter at the resistance at the emitter. What is the resistance at the emitter? It is Re parallel to RL. Okay. So you solve this, you will get the answer. So you will see that this was 50 ohm and this was, I think, 200 ohm. So both together will be some 40 ohm. Multiply by 201, I think you'll get some 8 kilo ohm something. This R, I think I had given IC also. IC was what, 30 milliamp I had given?
Yes, sir.
Right? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Now again, the other student who asked about the current. So I think I had WhatsApped also that for driver amplifiers and power amplifiers, you use larger currents, okay, because you are driving the resistive load. So this is emitter follower, which is a driver amplifier, which is why typically it gets biased at higher currents, okay. So the GM here is going to be IC by VT, and R pi is beta by GM. So I think R pi will be some 166.7 ohms or something. You can calculate this, okay. Similarly, when you talk about the output impedance, right? I had marked it on the circuit also to avoid confusion. So basically, you will have 1 over GM in parallel with I think it was, sorry, 1 by GM plus R1 parallel to R2 parallel to RS divided by beta plus 1, right? Something like this. We had derived this in the class, and this basically, so 1 over GM will basically be a very small value. This also will be a smaller value. You will get around, I think, 5 point some ohms or something like that. I don't remember the exact number. All right. Okay.
Sir?
Yeah.
Sir, is sir R pi is equal to Re into my beta plus 1?
Yes. Okay. R pi is equal to Re into?
Beta plus?
Okay. So this is alpha by GM. Yeah. Yeah. Correct. Yes. You can write that. Yes. Whichever you are comfortable with, that is fine.
Yes, sir. And sir, there was a one question, sir, about the headphone one. Means is building an audio amplifier and he needs to drive a headphone with 64 ohms impedance.
Right.
So
Right.
which topology should he use at the last stage of his amplifier? Means sir, what this means at the last stage of amplifier?
Okay, so this is the same that you had done in lab also, or I had even before the lab, I think in the class also I had told, right? So when you have a common emitter followed by a common source collector, right? So basically common collector is the answer. And the reason is basically the same thing. See, here you have 50 ohm I had given in this example, in this particular question, that I had given 64 ohm. So the reasoning is that if you take a common emitter amplifier, the output impedance is equal to RC, which is typically in the order of kilo ohm, right? So if you draw the equivalent circuit diagram, let us say it is intrinsic AV times V in, with an output impedance of, let us say, R out, which is in the range of kilo ohms, right? And if you connect your load impedance of, let us say, which is a 64 ohm, now what will happen? All the voltage will drop across R out, and your actual V out that you are having will be literally nothing. Correct. So which is why a common emitter by itself, because it has a high output impedance, cannot drive low impedance loads. I think I took the same example of headphones or speakers and things like that and explained in class. So because of which, if you look at the output impedance of a common collector, right? The output impedance of a common collector is typically, 1 over GM plus, that whole factor divided by beta plus 1. And you will see that this is a very small value. Okay. And this we had derived in class also. You will see that this is around some 5 ohm in this particular example. Now this, if you take the same thing, let's say AV times V in with an output impedance of, let's say, around 5 ohm, driving, let's say, a 64 ohm load, then obviously you will have very good output. So which is why we have this pairing of common emitter and common collector, right? So I also explained like how if you try to change RC, again, very similar, you can go and tweak RC such that you get a very small input output impedance. But then if you do that, you will be, losing out on your headroom and other things. So which is why it is not practical, or you'll be spending if you take a common emitter and directly connect it, you will have to burn a lot of current and you'll run into headroom issues and so on, which is why you use a common emitter amplifier to provide the gain and common collector to provide, a gain of slightly less than 1, but, it will be able to drive your low impedance load. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Sir,
Yeah.
sir, please explain that differentiator circuit question. I was not able to do that.
Okay. So the input is a triangle wave. Okay. Something like this, right?
Yes, sir.
And
Yes, sir.
I said that this is going through a differentiator, right? So let us say we're kind of using more of an idealized differentiator, right? This is your Vn. Now, you can look at it in two ways. You can just look at it mathematically and then say, what is a differentiator? It differentiates your signal, right? So if you differentiate a triangle wave, what will happen? In this play, what is differentiation? Differentiation is nothing but finding the slope of the signal. So what is the slope of the signal? You have some value, right? So I think I had given plus or minus 1 volt, right? And then
Yes, sir.
you can calculate. So it goes 2 volt in so many milliseconds, and then you can calculate whatever it is. It'll be constant at this time. It's a positive
Yes,
slope.
sir. Yes.
Now after this, it's going to have a negative slope, right? So if you look at the triangle wave frequency and the square wave frequency, it's going to be the same. So the output is going to be a square wave frequency of the same thing. This is to look at it mathematically. All right. You can also look at it circuit wise, and then you can say that this is also going to be 0 volt because of negative feedback. And what is the current that is flowing here? This is nothing but the current through the capacitor. So the voltage across the capacitor is V in. So the current through the capacitor is C dV in by dt. And the output is basically going to be minus RC dV in by dt. So basically in the actual case, what will happen is that you will have a flip in the polarity because of the inversion thing. So basically it will look like this. All right. But nevertheless, it's a square wave with the same frequency. That's all.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sir, the one more
Yeah.
thing. Sir, just like in the integrator circuit, you told that there is effect of the time constant.
Right.
Here also, is there some effect of the time constant?
Yeah, so what will happen is in an actual integrator, you'll have some series resistance with the capacitor, because any capacitor that you take in practice will have what is called as effective series resistance, ESR. Okay, so ESR means effective, I think it's effective or equivalent, I'm sorry, equivalent series resistance. Because if you take a capacitor, there are two leads, right? So those two wires will have some resistance, and then you have two parallel plates, and you have a dielectric material in between. Now, a dielectric material is an insulator, but insulator doesn't mean it has absolutely zero conductivity, right? It will have some finite, or rather, it doesn't have infinite resistance. It will have some finite resistance, right? So all put together, you have what is called as the equivalent or effective series resistance. I forgot what does the E stand for. It's called as the ESR. Okay. And as you go higher in frequency, maybe in the next class, I will just show you. For different capacitances, you have different thing, and it becomes a frequency dependent parameter also. Okay. So nonetheless, all you can say is that there is a series resistance with the capacitor. And of course, you have a feedback resistance. Let's call it RF. All right. Now, if you evaluate this one, what will happen is that, if you don't have let's say this is log of f, and this is 20 log of the h of s, all right, the differentiator transfer function. Now, what you will see is that it's a high pass filter type response, and this one is basically 1 by 2 pi c times RF. Right? This is where it reaches 0 dB, and then basically it's a differentiator, right? So it is a high pass filter, just keeps extending like this. Now, if it's an ideal differentiator, this line, as you keep increasing in frequency, it will keep going up indefinitely, right? But what happens is, because of, you can derive and see it's fairly straightforward. I would encourage you to do that. You will see that one pole comes into the picture, and this is given by, I think, 1 by 2 pi r s times c. Okay. So that this kind of acts as an differentiator in this regime, and at very high frequencies, it ceases to be a differentiator. All right.
Yes, sir. Okay, sir.
Okay. Yeah. So just derive this, and you will know. The same concept. Basically, you find out what is the I. Here it is V in, divided by this impedance of the series combination of RS and C. All right. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So any other questions? All right. So today we are going to start looking at some nice. I kind of want to take it a little more on the practical side. Unfortunately, since you guys are not able to come and physically do in lab, it's probably you're losing some aspect of your learning experience. But I really like to take circuits class, not merely doing a bunch of derivations and so on. So at least from this point onwards, I think we'll be looking at a lot of interesting circuits. And you should not study circuits subject as if you are reading some maths textbook. Okay, circuits is not maths. Right? You use mathematics as a tool, but ultimately you are a circuits engineer. As a circuits engineer, you are solving real life problems. Okay, so we should learn how to use circuits, how to tackle real life situations and problems, and bring out electronic solutions. Okay, so today we are going to start looking at what is called as comparators. Now, what is a comparator? As the name suggests, it is something that is going to compare two quantities, right? And the way it works is something like this. You have some black box, let's call it as a comparator. It has a plus terminal and a minus terminal. Okay. So let us call this as VP and VM, plus and minus. And the V out is defined in such a way that if VP is greater than VM, V out is equal to plus, let's just call it as VOH. I'll define what is VOH in a minute. And if VP is less than VM, we'll call this as V out is equal to VOL. All right. Basically, VOH basically means it's almost equal to VCC. This is almost equal to VSS or VEE or VSS, whatever. Depending on whichever technology you're using, let's just stick to minus VE. Okay. Now, if you take an op amp, for example, all right, So in other words, if you try to draw the voltage transfer characteristics, let's say this is your Vn, okay, sorry, this is your Vn, differential V in D, which is given by Vp minus Vm, right? So for Vp less than Vm, you're going to have minus VE, which is approximately equal to what is called as the VOL. In other words, which is the voltage which corresponds to a logic low. Okay. Now, at 0, you have a discontinuity, and then for Vp greater than Vm, you have VOH, which is approximately VCC. This is the behavior of a comparator. All right. Now, why do we call it as VOH and VOL? Basically, this is digital circuits terminology. Okay. Now, VOH basically means the voltage, the output voltage corresponding to a logic high, or let's call it 1. VOL, it's the same thing corresponding to a logic low or 0. Now, I'm sure all of you are familiar with basic digital logic. So, are you all familiar with, the basic logic gates?
Yes,
And,
sir.
Yes, sir.
Right? You have inverter, and right? And you have OR and NOR, XOR and XNOR, right? All these gates you're all familiar with. So when we talk about a logic 1, when it comes to actual circuits, right? So for example, if your processor, you have your processor, you have, so many different circuits, which we use every day in our lives. Now, when you talk about digital bit stream, how is it actually processing? You have a lot of transistors. Now, how does a transistor know whether it is a logic 1 or a 0? You assign some voltage value. Okay. In this particular case, let's say if we have a plus 15, minus 15 supply, we say plus 15 is logic 1 and minus 15 is logic 0. In the case of your CMOS processors, which are there in, let's say, your laptops or your mobile phones and so on, the supply voltage may be 1 volt, 1.2 volt, sometimes 0.8 volt, and there is also something called as dynamic, voltage scaling and things like that. So let us say if it is 1 volt, so 0 volt is logic 0 and 1 volt is logic 1. So there are different standards which are there, where the voltage levels, there are different voltage levels which denote whether it is a logic 1 or a logic 0. So in this case, let us say VOH and VOL. So in other words, this comparator is going to give you a logical output. That is, if Vp is greater than Vm, it is logic 1, and if it is less than Vm, it is logic 0. Now, how to build this circuit, right? So for example, if you take an op-amp, right? Let's take the op-amp 741. If I use this in an open loop condition, will this work as a comparator or not?
Yes, sir.
Yes, it will work as a comparator. Why will it work as a comparator? Because this is going to have some open loop gain, and Vout is given as what? Vp, let's say this is your Vp and this is your Vm. Vp minus Vm times the open loop gain. So for example, let us say you have a 1 millivolt difference, and let's say you have a 10 raised to 4, right? Or let's keep it some 2 millivolt difference, okay? Let's say you have a 10 raised to 4 being the open loop gain. What will you get? You have 2 into 10, which is 20 volt. You are supposed to get 20 volt, but we know that, let us say this is having a supply voltage of plus 15 and minus 15. So basically, instead of 20 volt, you will basically get plus 15 volt, which is your logic high. Now, of course, the previous number which I put, let's say if I take 1 millivolt, I'll end up with some 10 volt as output, right? So for sufficiently larger input difference, right? This op-amp is going to behave like a comparator, right? Now, for example, if my input differential signal is 1 volt and I'm going to have 10 raised to 4, I am not going to get 10 to the power of 4 volt, which is not possible. It will only turn out to be plus 15 volt. So which is why when it is kind of going into the nonlinear region of operation, all this, virtual ground concept and other things will not work here. Because when your output is at plus 15 volt, you don't know if you had an input difference of 2 millivolt or 1 volt or 5 volt or half a volt, right? For all these differences, it is basically going to give you plus 15 volt, right? It's only in that linear range, which is very narrow, you will basically have this kind of a response. So in other words, if you try to draw the voltage transfer characteristics of a 741 op-amp, you will say that, let's say, it's going to have a slope. Okay, this is definitely not looking like a straight line, right? Something like this and like this. Maybe in this case, 1.5 millivolt minus 1.5 and let's say plus 1.5 millivolt. So if your input differential is greater than that, let's say this is Vp minus Vm, it is going to reach plus Vcc or minus Ve, right? This is how your 741 op-amp is going to look like. Now, do you see any problems with these things? I mean, with this op-amp, do you think something can go wrong based on the non-idealities that we have seen before?
Well, there may be input offset voltage and
correct.
the output
You can have
voltage may not.
Very good. So input offset is a problem, right? So if you have input offset, okay, let us say in this case is plus 10 millivolt, right? So which means if you have this op-amp and let's say I'm having 10 millivolt and in front of it, this is Vp, then the Vout becomes AOL times Vp, let's say it's in Vp plus 10 millivolt minus Vm, right? So in that case, when will it flip the polarity? The polarity will flip if Vp minus Vm is. So basically you want this argument to go to 0. So Vp minus Vm plus 10 millivolt should go to 0. So which means Vp minus Vm is equal to minus 10 millivolt. No, the comparator flips, correct? So instead of having something like this, I am going to have a transfer characteristics like this, where this is, let's say, minus 10 millivolt, correct? That is, even before it reaches 0 volt, the trip point of your comparator or the flipping point of your comparator now gets shifted. Why is it shifted? Because of your offset, right? Now, is the offset predictable? No. Offset is a random quantity, and therefore every op-amp you take will have different offsets, right? Now, when you say you have a certain amount of offset, what is the usable range of this op-amp? Let us say I am looking at my op-amp data sheet. My op-amp data sheet tells me that my typical, that is basically when you say typical, you're talking about the mean, the mu, right? The typical value is, let us say, 10 millivolt, and let us say my max value is some 25 millivolt, all right? And this is all at 25 degrees Celsius. Now at 25 degrees Celsius operation, what is the useful range of your op-amp if it's going to work as a comparator? Or let us say, even if you have a comparator IC, there are some comparator ICs I will tell you. I mean, I will show you today. Those ICs also will have op-amp. I mean, will have offset. Any differential, anything with a differential input will have some offset. Okay. So let us say either your op-amp data sheet or your comparator IC. There are some separate comparator IC data sheets. Either of them, let us say you have an offset value which is given like this. What is the useful range or the usable range of this particular comparator?
So if the offset is 10 millivolts, then around minus 10 millivolts we can use it.
No, when you say when the data sheet says that your typical offset is 10 millivolt, it means that if you take let us say you take 100, not 100, let's say you take 1000 or 10,000 op amps, okay, and you measure the offset. Typically the offset will be a Gaussian distributed, will have a Gaussian distribution. All right. So if you have Gaussian distribution, it has a certain mu and it has a certain sigma. So you're all familiar with Gaussian distribution, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, right. Okay. So this value mu, and basically this is nothing but the mod of V offset. Okay. So it can be plus 10 millivolt or minus 10 millivolt. So when they say your typical offset is 10 millivolt, what they are saying is your mod VOS is 10 millivolt. Okay. And it has a certain spread. Okay. Now probably the 3 sigma value or the 6 sigma value might be the max, which is, let's say, 25 millivolt. Okay. So again, this is the mod value. Okay. Now, is it safe to say, when I say what is the usual usable range, I'm asking what is the minimum VP minus VM that is required so that this op amp will work properly? You understood? I should have a minimum input differential voltage of this much so that my comparator operation is successful every time. What is that value?
So VOS max.
VOS max. So mod of VP minus VM min is basically mod of VOS max. So in other words, if your data sheet is going to tell you that the maximum offset at 25C is 25 millivolt, right? Then you have to make sure that whatever input you're getting, I mean, you're feeding to this comparator has a differential output of greater than 25 millivolt. So in that case, what will happen, even though the offset is present in your op amp or in your comparator, it will still work successfully. But if your difference is less than this offset voltage, right? There is, I mean, it's all up to probability. You may get a correct response, you may get a wrong response, right? Depending on that particular op amp. Now, on top of this, this is usually, if you look at the data sheet, they will tell you this is the value at 25 degrees Celsius or 27 degrees Celsius. And then they will say there is an offset drift. Okay. So maybe just look at, there are the data sheets. Yeah. So LM324, or let me go to LM741. This is what we use, right? So if you go here, let's look at the electrical characteristics. The input offset voltage is taken to be typically 1 millivolt, maximum 5 millivolt at TA equal to TA meaning ambient temperature, 25 degrees Celsius. Now, for the temperature variation for TA min to TA max. Now, what is TA min and TA max? They would have given here somewhere. Yeah, the ambient is basically, let's say, minus operating temperature minus 50 degrees to 125 degrees Celsius. So for this ambient temperature, right? Or maybe, yeah, minus 55 to 125, whichever they are using, right? Now, what is the thing? What is the drift? I mean, they are having 6 millivolt as the maximum offset. Okay. So if you want your comparator using a 741 to work properly, you have to make sure that your input differential signal is greater than 6 millivolt, right? Now, here they have said under certain conditions, this is what they have: input offset volt adjustment range. Okay, so this is to adjust the thing using the nulling resistor. Offset current, bias currents are all there. and they have not talked about drift, is it? Okay. Offset current drift is there. Okay. Average input offset voltage drift. You can see that it is 15 microvolt per degree centigrade. That means what? From 25 degrees centigrade, if you're going to move, let us say, from 25 degree, let us say you are going to move to 55 degree. That is, you're having a 30 degree excess temperature. Now the input offset voltage will also drift with temperature. So typically if it is 0.8 volt, 0.8 millivolt, now at 55 degree, it will be 0.8 millivolt plus 15 microvolt per degree centigrade into 30 degrees. Okay. So that will be the voltage. So there is a drift. So I'm not sure whether they have given those plots. Usually these people have not given here. Let's look at LM324. LM324 is a very commonly used op-amp, readily available. Now, this has a quadruple operation amplifier, which means that if you look at the pin diagram, there are 4 op-amps sitting inside. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, and 4, and there are 4 op-amps which you can use independently. Now, let me see if there is a, yeah. So here you can see that VOH, the high level output voltage, is VCC minus 1.5 volt. That is what they have given. Low level voltage is around, few millivolts, 5 to 20 millivolt. Okay. Now, let's also see the offset variation. Okay. They have also not given. I think there are other data sheets where we can see that. Okay, all right. Now, another problem that you have is basically, so offset is one problem. Now, there's another problem. What is the other problem? The slew rate. The slew rate of your 741 op-amp, now I'm in the 741 data sheet. If you see the slew rate, you see some 0.7 volt per microsecond. All right. So let us take this number and let us go here. So we understood offset voltage is there for all the comparators and op-amps. You have to make sure that your input differential voltage is greater than your maximum offset. Now, what about slew rate? Now, if you have 0.7 volt per microsecond, okay, let us say your op-amp has to change its state from VOL, which is almost minus VEE. Let us say it is approximately minus 13.5 volt, because they said 1.5 volt. Here, let's say this is going to plus 13.5 volt. All right. Now, this is basically going to be your slewing region. This slew rate is 0.7 volt per microsecond. What is the total voltage that you are going to traverse here? 13.5 to plus 13.5, which is 27 volt. And how much time does it take? Let's say time is t. The rate that is given is basically 0.7 volt per microsecond, right? So what is the time period here? 27 divided by 0.7 microsecond. So basically, sorry, somewhere it is wrong. This is V by S, this is V by S into 1 microsecond. So you have 27 by 0.7 into 1 microsecond. How much do you get here? 27 divided by 0.7.
4.4.
Around 38.5 microseconds. Okay. So which means that from here to here, it is going to take 38.5 microseconds, which is actually a very long time. All right. It's a very long time. In fact, one of your senior students, that is 2018 to 22 batch students, like he was doing a pulse width modulated signal for his project, and he was using the 741 op-amp, and it was badly slewing, which is why it kind of limited his output characteristics also. So you can, here they have not given the slew, they have given only the slew rate. Let's look at 3 to 4. Look at this particular graph, right? So here you can see that this one is the input and the darker line is the output. So when you have a square input, you can see that, it is basically taking a long time to settle. In this particular case, it is taking some 5 plus 3 to 4 is a different op amp. I think it has a better slew rate, but still it is taking some almost 7 or 8 microseconds to settle. All right. So these are the two things. One is the offset and the other is the slewing. So which is why there are some dedicated comparator ICs. One of the comparator ICs is LM311. Okay. LM311 is a comparator IC. It's called differential comparator IC, again by Texas Instruments. You can see that the response time here is 165 nanosecond, very fast, right? Much faster compared to the other things, right? Now, if you look at this simplified schematic, of course, they have some balance and strobe thing, basically to adjust the offset and things like that. You have the in plus and in minus, and the output is not like an op amp here. It drives a transistor where you can pin out the emitter and the collector. So basically what will happen is that it will either go high, I mean, it will give the inverted output so that the final output will be the correct polarity. So let me show you the, before we look at the electrical characteristics here. So this is at plus minus 15 volt, 25 degrees. This is the input offset voltage, 2 to 7.5. The full range is up to 10 millivolt. Offset current, bias current, everything is there. Input common mode range and all that is there, right? And what is your VOL? VOL is around 0.75 to 1.5 volt. Okay, so this is for a certain, this is the thing. And then let us also look at some of the characteristics here. Okay, so if you look at this figure 3, okay, the input differential voltage is 100 millivolt, right? You can see the output time. So for example, so basically what they are showing is that for various input overdrives, so minimum it needs kind of in 100 millivolt, and then when you, if you give a 5 millivolt overdrive, it takes a certain amount of time. If you, the higher voltage you give, the faster it kind of becomes, right? So minimum you need a kind of 100 millivolt input range, and then you can see the rise time and the fall time here. It's all in the order of some nanoseconds, right? You can go through this in detail, I mean, to see how it is. So this is the voltage characteristics. Let me show you the circuit that they use here. So this is a typical, where is your comparator output, right? So you can basically put a pull-up resistor here. This particular comparator IC requires you to put a pull-up resistor. So you give an input differential signal here. Here they have given plus 30 volt and 0. You can also give plus minus 15. Here they have put plus 30 and 0. So they have the collector, and collector is pulled up to VCC with 1 kilo ohm resistance. So that is why you have the bubble here. So basically, this is also the bar of the output, and therefore when you put a pull-up resistor and take it out, you will get the actual output. You can also put the emitter characteristics and other things. I think they would have given this is the internal diagram. I think the application note is kind of given like this. Right? This is your typical, this one. This is a zero crossing detector, or you can also use other things. Okay. Now LM393 is another dual comparator thing. Okay. So in this one, again, if you look at it, this is also a faster output. So you can see that this schematic also, you have an open collector, but here the emitter is grounded. So you only have the open collector, and therefore you need to put a pull-up device. Pull-up resistor. Okay. So let us see some. So here you can see, as for different input overdrive voltages, you will have different slew rates. Okay. And this is the basic comparator operation. You put a pull-up resistor, some 3K they have used, and then you have your comparator operation. So these are LM393, LM311 are all comparator ICs, whereas 324 is an op amp, 397 is also another general purpose comparator. You can look at it. Okay, 741 obviously is an op-amp. 158. So this is again. This is again an op-amp. Okay, LM158 is an op-amp. You can see that some of the op-amps will have a much higher, a much better slew rate, so they can work better as comparators as well. Okay, so probably I'll just stop with this for today because we are running out of time. Any questions? Any doubts? I'll just put all these data sheets in the Moodle page. So please do just go through them. Okay, so that as engineers, you have to learn how to read data sheets and understand the performance. Okay. Any doubts? Any questions?
For lab, we will be doing which circuit?
Yeah, for lab, what we will do is I will teach you Schmidt triggers or bistable multivibrators on Friday. So that is what you'll be doing on Friday's lab.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Have a nice day.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.